So my name's James Hall. I am one of the executive directors of Ripples Wellbeing, and I'm here today because we are pretty excited to reveal that we were one of the winners in the recent awards. So we won the Occupational Mental Health and Wellbeing Award in the Health and Safety Awards this year. So that's why we're here, to talk about what that means to us and hopefully give a bit of insight into who we are, what we do, that kind of stuff. So that's me.
So I'm Heidi. I'm the other half of Ripples. Co-founded it with James. So just really pleased with the recent award that we won, and just get to talk about the wonderful things that we do here at Ripples, and all the services and things that we offer, and our why and how we came to be.
Could you provide an overview of your career journey that ultimately led to you becoming the co-founders of Ripples Wellbeing Limited, along with a brief description and history of the business?
So did I ever kind of imagine doing this? Probably not, if I'm honest. So believe it or not, I'm actually an electrician by trade. So I did 20 plus years in the construction industry, in particular the lighting industry. So health and safety has always been a part of my life, I guess you could say. I did that, and basically, to cut a very long story short, life threw a few unfortunate events at me, caused me to have some pretty severe mental health issues myself, which led me to a journey of kind of rediscovery, in which I retrained and got quite fascinated with the mind, if I'm honest, and the power of healing and professional help that I got. And I kind of thought, do you know what, one day I'm going to give something back, and I'd like to turn this all around and complete the circle, if you like. So then, that's kind of in a nutshell how it came about, really, if I'm honest. So
I don't know. I was reflecting on this question when you sent it, and as a child, I wanted to be a doctor, and I think there was always some intrinsic part of me that I think wanted to do good by other people and in that caring role. But life takes you in funny directions, and you don't quite go where you want to be. And I didn't study medicine. I studied psychology, equally interesting, at uni. But started working in retail, and life just takes you in a direction, and you want money as a young person, you want to do all those things. So started in retail, and I played rugby. So I played rugby for a long time, and volunteered in various roles at rugby clubs, and then had the amazing opportunity to become the first person to get paid to work in women's rugby in the UK. So away from the RFU, I should put that one in there, at club level. So Premiership Rugby. So worked for Bristol Bears, held various kind of voluntary roles within the RFU on kind of women's groups and things like that. And then life throws other curveballs at you, and had an event at the rugby club, a really good friend of both James and I, who we played rugby with, Jen, who you can read more about on our website, who lived with mental health the whole of her life, had lots of challenges, very open and honest about it, that led us into a space where she took her own life, and the club was in a real just opened our eyes. I think Jen had a huge impact on lots of people, and I played rugby with James's wife, who's also called Heidi, so there's two Heidis, and I knew James was re-qualifying to be a counsellor, and reached out to James and said, look, we've got this kind of harebrained idea, and I think we need to do it. What do you reckon? We kind of batted around with what we thought it could look like, that's where it started, really, in its infancy. And James volunteered a huge amount of his time to help at Bristol Bears, lots of players, staff. We have the Premiership rugby clubs have a under 18s program as well, and James ran a mental health program with them, and then James qualified and set himself up, and that was when we said, there was always a part of us, I think, wasn't there, James, where we were like, wouldn't it be brilliant if this was a thing, and this was actually what we did. And and James, we always say that we are like two halves that come really together. So I'm an overthinker, so I definitely overthink. probably sit on the anxious side of life and overthink, overplan, and kind of was like, yeah, it'd be wonderful, but there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this. Whereas James is a go-getter, so is a very action, was really, so James was like, no, we should do it, let's just do it, let's go. And so Ripples Wellbeing came to be, which was a pretty special day when that happened. And then I retrained during COVID, and then came into the business offering the other side of stuff, so as a mental health first aider and workplace wellbeing, so a little bit different.
What challenges would you say you've overcome as co-founders of Ripples Wellbeing, and what advice would you give to someone who's maybe looking to enter that kind of health and safety industry?
I think, if I'm honest, I think there's a danger of taking on too much, if we're completely honest. Now, we're actually bigger than just Heidi and I. We actually have affordable counsellors that work for us, and qualified counsellors too. So they require managing. So actually, in order for me to, or for us to be able to earn a living, if you like, we need to be able to kind of pay the bills. So we need to both work to be able to cover our bills, so to speak, but also those people need managing. So it's about the challenges, I think, is about remembering you only have one pair of hands. It's about kind of being realistic and growing organically. We grew quite quickly, very, very quickly early on, to be honest, and bringing in students and stuff like that. And it's definitely, that's been the most challenging thing, I think. And also, I think, feeling like a real grown-up, actually, like, wow, we're directors of a business. Did I ever see myself as a director of a business? No, I didn't. And when I see the word like executive director, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that's me. I was just some clown that used to mess about at school and didn't really take life too seriously, and still have a bit of fun along the way now, to be honest. But actually, so it's that kind of responsibility, but in a world that I think needs it, but in an industry or in a place where like health and safety is everyone's responsibility. It really is. And I know that's a cliche and people say it all the time, but it really is. But actually, I think people always define the kind of health as like the physical aspect, but actually where we come in is where we bring in the mental and holistic view, where it could be spiritual, it could be emotional, it could be and physical, actually, and they're all so closely linked. And so that's what we try and bring to the fore. So hopefully I've kind of covered it, and Heidi will add some beauty, I'm sure.
We always add on top, don't we? I think that the health and safety industry has, for the last, if you look at the last 50 years, where the last 50 years is really focused on is the real safety element, which 100% needed to happen. Machinery needs to keep us safe. It not needs to cause injury. But where we are now is, accidents still do happen at work, and obviously the safety part of health and safety is still imperative. But we are moving onto the kind of health aspect and making sure that, yes, as much as we're keeping somebody physically safe, as we all know, we've all got mental health, and sometimes that's in a good space and sometimes that's not in a great space. And really kind of helping workplaces to just think outside the box and think, as much as our employees know, don't lift we've all seen those signs, haven't we, on how to lift a box at work. Equally, there should be, as much support in and around, actually, if today you're not in a great space, that's also all right. Here's where you can go to get some support. So I think that's a piece of in terms of the health and safety sector. I suppose my biggest piece of advice in terms of, I suppose, does it address a challenge? I suppose I remember a long time ago someone saying to me, the definition of an expert is if you know more on an area than the average person in that room. So I know more about, James and I would know more about mental health in an average room. So that makes us an expert in mental health. It doesn't make, James is obviously a counsellor and a mental health professional. I'm not, I'm a trainer. I come at it from a different aspect. But someone when, a long time ago, actually in the world of rugby, when we were founding ourselves, and someone said to me then, don't be afraid to accept your limitations and accept to say, and I use the example of, our accountant, she's called Amanda and she's wonderful, and accepting the fact that James and I are experts. James is a different expert to me, and I'm an expert in my arena, but actually also be willing to accept the fact that you don't know everything. And especially when that comes to setting up a business, James and I right from the beginning were like, Do you know about accounts? No. Do you? No. Right, brilliant. We need to outsource it, and not being afraid to do that. And obviously there are cost implications of those things, but almost from setting a business up, and whatever arena it is, if I'm really honest, whether it's health and safety or other areas, IT, construction, whatever it is to really not be afraid to say, I know this, but I don't know this, and actually you do, so I'm going to ask for your help and I'm going to ask for your advice, but also be willing to say, do you know what, this isn't my expertise. Another member of our team is called Becky. She runs Catalyst Creatives, and she does all of our marketing and our social media, and she is phenomenal. James and I can just about pull things together if she goes away, but again, she's an expert. She knows more than the average face in a room, and so it's appropriate. And I think that's how you build a really good team around you when you're founding a business. And I think that's one of the challenges that lots of businesses find. It's not to say we didn't find it, but I remember it being a really good piece of advice that I think has really helped us in setting ourselves up and really aided our growth, because we've been willing to say, you know, I know this, but hands up, I don't know this thing, and actually I need some help on it. So that's what I would say.
What would you attribute as the main reason for your business's success?
So for me, I think it's about the passion that we share, actually, and the legacy that Jen left behind. So everything that we do, I get choked up. I'm quite an emotional person, but that's okay. We do in her memory, and that kind of inspires us. And the ripple effect, pardon the pun, but it really is a thing. And so I think first and foremost is our passion. Jen kind of guiding us in some capacity, her legacy really guiding and shaping what our business looks like. I think that is our biggest attribute. I also feel that we're kind of like a family. So anyone that comes to join us, you need to kind of fit the mold, if you like. You've got to be kind of willing to kind of be part of the family, if that makes sense. And we do view it very much as a family. And I think that's probably the rugby ethos in us, if we're honest. Both love rugby and that teamwork, the sense of kind of compassion and kind of shared ownership that we have, I think is really, really important. And the last thing for me, I think really is about kind of, it's about making sure that we make a difference and we recognize our own limitations too. And like you say, you bring in the right people at the right time, and not be afraid to put your heart on your sleeve, I think. Although for me, being a counsellor, it's not obviously all about me, it's very much about the client. And I think that in a nutshell is where we kind of really excel. I think we really are client focused. So whether it's mental health first aid training, whether it's affordable counselling or professional counselling or training or whatever guise or hat we're wearing at the time, it's always about the people that we're working with and for, and they're always at the centre of everything we do. And I think that's quite a unique prospect that we actually own. So yeah.
Since winning that award, how has that affected your business, would you say, both internally and externally?
So internally, I think what it did was it gives some validation to us. Actually, it's like, actually we are real. Like we're recognized. Like people it's not just us that think we're brilliant. That sounds very terrible, but it's true. Actually other people are recognizing it, and it is like, we were both kind of to begin with, we were like, not really sure why we're entering this, but let's do it. And we did, and it's like, actually we are doing a lot of good things. But I think because we're both quite humble, we don't probably blow our own trumpets enough. So this has been a great chance to blow your own trumpet and pick up a bit of glassware or silverware. I've got it here in my hand to hand. So actually, so internally, it's very much like a pat on the back, if you like, and a kind of, it gives you a bit of a lift in your spirit, if you like. But externally, we haven't actually seen the direct impact yet. But I know from the previous industry that I was in, awards win prizes. They do, literally. And so when we're kind of pitching for work, etc., so going into bigger organizations, so currently I have quite a large contract with quite a prestige law firm, which I do a lot of the work, and that was in part of our submission. That probably formed a lot of the reason why perhaps we won this award. But actually, when we're pitching for works like this in the future, being an award winner, I think it just gives you that extra cutting edge. and maybe some competitive advantage. So we're hoping to really ripple out again, another ripple. We're hoping that this award kind of acts as like a springboard to more success, and the award in itself makes us successful. So does the job satisfaction that we all get from doing what we do. But more importantly, it's about how far can we reach. And I think just having the logos, having the kind of, we were finalists, we were award winners, I think it just gives you a bit more clout, if I'm honest. So I'm just excited to see where it takes us. Although right now we can't tell you how much it's given us so far, but what it has given us is a lot more confidence to pitch for bigger things and spread the love.
As an award winner, would you recommend Business Awards UK to other businesses?
Yeah, I would, and I do think we opened ourselves up to the prospect of, and James will be really honest, you know, we are very young we've grown hugely in a very, very short amount of time, and our growth is not stopped yet. It's still expanding, still rippling out, as James would say. And awards were something that I think in your head you think is something that, you know, when you've been in the business for 10, 20, 30 years, that's when you reach a prestigious level for awards. And I think when we were approached to apply and you know, seeing it, and we were like, do we, don't we? Oh, I think so. And, you know, again, I mentioned in my earlier question how James is definitely the driver and I'm the overthinker. And James is like, well, why not? Like, let's see what happens. And I think, again, as James was saying, you know, when you fill out the application form and you provide your evidence and your testimonials and all those things, you actually, asides whether you become a finalist or a winner or just the process itself, the whole thing allows you to just reflect and actually say, oh, we do that, and we did this, and this is where we've come from, and this is where we started, and this is where we are now, and this is where we're going. And I think the whole process of applying and you know, the business awards, I think from start to finish was a really simple process. It was really straightforward. There was no massive complications in terms of dealing with it. So yeah, I definitely recommend it, and I know James would as well.
What would you say is the next big step for yourselves and Ripples Wellbeing?
So we're at the point where, as James was saying, you know, James and I actually, as much as we founded Ripples Wellbeing in its infancy, James very much, I was still working elsewhere, so James definitely held all the space that was Ripples Wellbeing to start off with. And then we've grown, and we have student placement students who offer our affordable counselling, who are amazing. And, you know, again, it's about adding back into the arena of mental health. You know, we're playing our part in providing a really good, nourishing environment for those students to develop and kind of get their last bit of their qualification to go off into the counselling world. And we are just literally, our first student is about to pass out of placement, so has been with us for the whole of their placement, and on paper has passed out and is just about to do it, and is joining us as an associate counsellor, so that's amazing. We are just about to then expand our student programme from 2 to 4, if I've got the numbers right, and then we'll go from James and an associate counsellor to James and 2 counsellors. So the counselling team is doubled, if not nearly tripled. So that's one of our areas of expansion. And in terms of from the rest of the business, so James is quite newly qualified in laughter yoga, so another string to our bow. So that, and I think it's about helping workplaces. I think our next kind of big step really is moving into that workplace space, you know, beyond mental health first aid training, which is an incredible award, really not an award, amazing training for any workplace, whatever your size. But it's about kind of adding something on top of that. You know, what can we do more than that? You know, how can we really aid workplaces to become more mentally healthy? And I think that's it really. I think in order to, you know, reduce the stigma that exists around mental health, it needs to be spoken about just the same as you speak about a bad back. It needs to be spoken about in the same framework. And I think our next big step is really into that workplace organisational spaces. We're looking at, so we're just about to launch a mental health first aider CPD programme. So for people who are mental health first aiders, they come to us for some CPD, which would be really great. And then really looking into just continuing expanding the counselling team. But also we're looking at a kind of pay it forward scheme where the organisations that we work for fund mental health services for communities that might not be able to afford it, and that we act and we help them with their corporate responsibility pots and help them to be able to fund counselling for communities that exist, as we know that don't get to access these things. And I think Jen is at the heart of lots of what we do, and one of the things that Jen always said was that when she needed the help most, she couldn't get it. And unless she was at crisis point, and even at crisis point it was only a certain level of help, and actually she always said unless you had money or you were at crisis, getting help was really, really challenging. So I think that's the real big step for us, is to really kind of enter into that space and think, how do we link the workplace organisations into kind of other spaces that really, really need it as well. So watch this space, as they say.
Well, that sounds absolutely fantastic. It sounds like you're already got some big plans ahead, and some even bigger ones in the future that sound like they'll be challenging, but it sounds like you're very much ready for them and ready to expand even more so. And I'm sure Jen would absolutely love the progress you guys have made with this company, and absolutely sounds like you're doing the right things. So again, thank you so much for joining us both today, James and Heidi. Can you, I was going to say, if people want to find you, if they want to sign up for services, or maybe they even want to intern with yourselves and, like I said, go into the university kind of side of it, where can they find yourselves?
Yes, there's a few places you can find us. So there's our website, which is www.rippleswellbeing.co.uk, if I get it right. We are also, so James and I on LinkedIn are there as our individual selves, but we also have an account under Ripples Wellbeing as well. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook as well. So lots of spaces that you can find us.
Brilliant. Well, again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us both today, and we'll make sure to put those links in the description below. Thanks again, guys.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.